Horse Money was completed in 2014, and it's almost the culmination of 20 years of working with this amazing immigrant community in Lisbon, in this area which I can't pronounce properly,
Yes.
Fontainhas, which doesn't exist anymore, it's been broken down. Pedro made 4 feature films and a number of shorts there. And it's become like the sort of cinematic landscape of his work for the last 20 years almost. I guess you didn't start off with that in your mind, so could you tell us how did this happen?
It was really a very simple and strange story. It was, I made a film in the islands of Cabo Verde. So this is a group of islands, an archipelago. Do you say archipelago? Really in front of Senegal. And I had this idea once for my second film to do, which was a stupid idea, but to do a remake of a film I loved, I still like a lot, called I Walked with a Zombie. It's a film directed by Jacques Tourneur. It's an American-French or French-American director. It's a film from the late 40s or...
43.
Yeah. And it's... so I thought of doing a remake of that. Had no ideas for my second film, so... at that time I had a producer and I said I want to go far away and do a film in Africa. And so I did that film. It's not a remake of I Walked with a Zombie. It's something else. And anyway, I fell in love with that place and the people. The film I made is Casa de Lava. It has perhaps a more documentary side. It has a documentary side to the film. I've shot a lot with the people in the villages. I shot the villages, etc. I left the fiction, the written part, the text, a little aside. And when I came to Lisbon, the last days of shooting, a lot of people there that helped us with, not even just people from schools and the village, gave me a lot of presents to bring to the relatives in Lisbon, to relatives. The Cape Verdeans is an immigrant people. They are in Lisbon. We have, I think, 400,000 in Portugal, more than 1 million. So, and they gave me presents, coffee, tobacco, and letters, a lot of letters. So I had this bag, and I had to go find the relatives, the Cape Verdeans in Lisbon. So I found this place, Fontainhas, which was a slum, a very big slum, just outside Lisbon. And because I had this bag and I spoke Creole, I had to learn to make the film there. I could get in easily. And because I brought this news and smells and flavors of home, I was immediately one of them. I stayed, and I was forced to stay to Sunday and Monday to parties and dinners and stuff, so I stayed. And I said, probably this is my place, because I was not very happy with the films I was doing, and not the films, but the way I was living, the life of filmmaking. So I said, perhaps this is the place. And that's how I met the community. I knew I liked the faces, the people, the music, the sounds, the flavors, everything. So no problem there. And now I'm thinking that perhaps these letters, because cinema has a lot to do with this anyway, are a kind of metaphor of what I'm doing now, because I brought the news, but I still don't know what was written in the letters. So this became a kind of metaphor for me, the origin of every film for me. Not even my films. Every film is like this. The good films for me are like this, like letters that you don't really know what's written there. You know, there's an envelope. Somebody reads it. You read the face. You don't read the text. That's the.
Pedro, can I just add another dimension to this here, is that as you went on making films in this community, the actual topic affected your way of making movies and affected your style of making movies. And I wondered if you could describe a little bit how that trajectory evolved.
Yeah.
If you go back to the first film you actually made in Fontaine.
Yeah, so I came from, I had some knowledge. I spoke Creole. I had been in the homeland, in the islands, and then I was with the immigrants in Lisbon. I was a bit afraid because I was not a part of that world. I'm not even that class. I did speak the language, but so the first film I made, I thought perhaps I would. I knew it would be an approach. So it's still a film that comes and goes. Actually, in the film, you go in the neighborhood and you go out several times. So I needed a little bit my city, the center of the city, my white city, and so I tried and I picked up, like everybody does, when you say a cliché, something I read in the paper and worked around that, and that gave a film called Ossos, Bones, which is still very, I wouldn't say it's done with the people or in that place, and I brought the machines. I brought cinema there to the. I thought I could do that, so I had the trucks and the lights and the assistants and the producer, and it didn't work. I mean, I tried. I liked the film, but from what I remember, and that's what I'm always repeating, it's this feeling that every filmmaker knows, sadly, which is there's nothing in front when you're rehearsing or seeing something and you're preparing to shoot something. There's nothing there. Everything good is here, here, or here. It's a shame, but all of you that have made films, you know the feeling. You're like panicking with this girl or boy, and you don't know what to do, and then your eye sees a ray of sun in a flower, and that's what you want to do, but you can't do it because moving this machine to this ray of sun is like, I don't know how many $1 million or patience and a film crew is bored, essentially bored all the time. And they get really angry when you do this kind of things. Well, when I work with it, I still think it's the same today. I still think film and film crews and film. The essence of film is that they need novelty. They need, they need the rush of something different. The scenes. Tomorrow we'll do the love scene, and the day after tomorrow we'll do the separation scene or something.
And so it was out of that you then went in to Fontinhas again to do in Vanda's room with very different circumstances.
So because of all the trucks and stuff, was not happy again. And I was lucky to meet this girl who was acting a little bit in Ossos, so a girl from the neighborhood, white, not Cape Verdean, white, but speaking Creole and brought up like a Cape Verdean. And her name was Vanda, and we became friends. And she hated the film, the film Ossos. She was a sort of Mitchum, Robert Mitchum, during the film. I was very afraid of her, and then I began to understand that she had a point, and she was always laughing and saying, "This is completely pathetic, what you're doing," and 30 guys not understanding. So in the end she said, "If you seem to like this place, you seem to like us, you're trying something, next time you should try something else, because this doesn't work. This is too..." She was talking about the cheating, and probably there was a lot of cheating behind my back. And of course I had, from what I remember, 6 or 7 assistants. And these assistants were just filters, really, to keep me from problems. Paying this and that, and paying problems, You solve, in films, you solve problems with money. The diplomacy of cinema is, no different from what happens in society, but it's awful. It's money. Someone has a problem and you pay him and he shuts up, or he goes to a hotel, or... So Vanda told me, you should do something else. That's, well, again, this is my fiction, but it's more or less like this, my imagination. But she was saying something like, you should take care of one side of cinema that you're not taking care. Perhaps you know what to say, perhaps you know your poetry, your moves, your gestures, but it should work here. It should work with us. There should be a coincidence, or the ends and the means should meet. And so I thought for a while that I had this problem, artistic or something, and it wasn't artistic. It was a production. It was production. It was as simple as, how am I going to function? Pay the money, get the money, and who is getting what. And so I started this film in Vanda's room, alone with a video camera, a small camera, and tried to solve during the film these problems of more material problems of surviving, producing with film.
And so it was you on your own with video camera for most of the shoot?
For most of the shooting, yeah. Then
So
I
that
got
was
a
a
friend
huge
to do the sound.
shift from the trucks and the crew to that.
Yeah.
And so how did you then emerge out of that production situation into Colossal Youth?
And then become, Vanda's room was 2 years just shooting, then 1 year editing, coming back to the neighborhood. And then I became I was really I was there all the time, so I did other stuff. I shot, people getting married, funerals. I did a lot of stuff. They have lots of hours of tapes and association that they had. So I was working, I was thinking, and I was always happy thinking about film. Film as I think should be thought about, and not at home in my bed thinking about rain. He wakes up in trembling. I was, it was not raining. I was there, and I had problems, and I was not inventing fake problems, and so there was never wasted time for me there in that place. The place disappeared because it was torn down by machines. That's what you see in Vanda's room. So I followed them. I really followed them to the next film. And the next film began as with the visiting of the new houses. That's how the new film began. I just went with a friend, Ventura, that you saw here, when he and his family went to visit the house they were going to live in. The house they hated immediately. A white house, a white cube, and a house I hated because they were going to live there and I was going to film them there. So I had my problems and I told them this is going to be really bad, Ventura. It's all white, and he said, you tell me, you said, I have to live here. So we did that film.
Pedro, so what happened was out of the crisis of the old homes and the shantytown being destroyed, moving into the new homes, Ventura emerged.
Yeah. Well, he was there. There's lots of Venturas, of course, everywhere, and I think I saw one in the film recently. Can't remember. Somebody like Ventura, I mean, force of the past, like they say. But Ventura was, when I was shooting in Vanda's room, I had no assistant, so I was alone. I saw him every day when I came I was not living there, I came and every day at the same time because I had this idea that, and it worked, that, I took the bus every day to work, and alone you have to have this discipline. And so it started with getting up at, 6 or 7, taking the bus, 1 hour. So I went and came back home. And when I got to the neighborhood, before going to Vanda's room or to some other place, I would see him sometimes. And he was, imagine him 20 years younger. He's very tall, very beautiful, and tall and mysterious and very frightening. And he was a kind of one of the, how can I say, failures of this community. He was the first man that built the first shack in Fontainhas, one of the first. So he's like the pioneer, the father, but he was the first to get sick in the head. So this was this double side, so very frightening, very beautiful, but very dark, I used to see him, and I thought at the beginning that he was a kind of a sentinel, like a guardian, because at that time this neighborhood was a very dangerous place. We were at the height of drugs, heroin, and everything in Lisbon, and this was a market. So they had young guys, like everywhere, like sentinels for police raids. So I thought this guy is one of them. But then he was very nice. He said good morning, etc. Every day, and then he came closer and said, "So how's it going?" And I said, "Well, it's very difficult. It's a film." And then he started saying, "Tomorrow it will be better. Have a good rest, etc." So I said, "This is the perfect assistant." It really was, because I was doing a film inside a room. I went out and then went searching for other rooms. That was what I was trying to do. And I knew this guy was there, outside, you know. It was like a protective... He was not a filter. He was really somebody that was not there as a filter or a block, you know. It was freedom. So one day I told him, would you like to be in this kind of work? And he said, yes, very simply, yes. So we started that Colossal Youth, which was long, 1 year, every day. I got a little bit more money than for the other films. So we managed to shoot 1 year, every day, except Sundays, but every day. And then we edited for a long time. And that changed a bit because, well, the film was a little bit... Well, in 1 year, you know, people die, get born. Wanda had a daughter. She was not there when we started the film. She's in the last shot. So, and then we did some shorts after that one.
I just wanted you to say that when you showed Colossal Youth to the people in the community, one young man said, Ventura, we see you every day. You're drunk, you're ill, you're nothing. When we see you on the screen,
you're all of us. You're our voice, our face, our...
So to a certain extent, you'd recognise someone who not only represented the community, but also had an extraordinary screen presence.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're blind, you can see that. But then the work is, you know, it's difficult because he's really, he's not well. He's not well. He's been diagnosed schizophrenic for a long, long time. He really had these stories that he tells here and in Colossal Youth and in the short films. He had knives and women and accidents, and he had an adventurous life.
So if we move on now, because I think you've brought us very elegantly to Horse Money and the new way in which you engage with Ventura, because I think you've said that in Colossal Youth, Ventura is searching his own community, and he's an observer, whereas in Horse Money, the tables somewhat turn.
Do you think so?
Yes. Do you think so?
I'm not sure.
And
I don't know.
It becomes more the subject.
I don't know. We'll see in the next one. That's what I can say. In the next one, we'll see. But two ideas. One was this idea of this delirium or this insanity and the revolution. It happened in the same year for him, and a little bit for me too. We lived the same revolution on very different sides. I was on the joyful side. I was happy. I was very happy, like all the young and not so young people in my country. And he was getting mad. Mad, I mean, he went mad. He went into a long, long sleep or nightmare. So this was an idea that we have been talking since Colossal Youth, so this was the moment to do it. The other thing was very simple, is that try to work a little bit more with him, me and him with me, around that presence. Because I still believe in the presence, but with something else, perhaps. With some text, that's what I mean. We wanted to try some text, some
text that came always from him and the other collaborators.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say something about the change, the shift in space and place. So you mentioned the letters earlier on as a metaphor which you felt could represent the exchange of filmmaking. But whereas up till now, up till Horse Money, when you shot in the shantytown, in Fontignas, you'd been shooting in a very specific place, geographical location. You move onto a very different, much more metaphorical level, more onto a topographical dream scape, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I've been avoiding this kind of questions for years now.
But I told you I was going to ask.
And the only answer is they are robbing us. They are robbing them first and robbing me. I have no more studio. No more, well, I mean, we know that since Mr. Minelli and other brave people, but we have no more we were talking about that, me and Chris. We have no more studio, we have no more wardrobes, we have no more nothing. I mean, pretend to have a scenario or a screenplay or things like that is just an imposture. I mean, I don't know how we can go on with this. So, I mean, I'm doing with the leftovers. Yes. With Ventura,
with what you've
we could go back to the islands, of course. We could. It crosses my mind sometimes, but you know, it's the life of that's what you see on TV now. It's the life of a refugee. They used to be called escaping, with no soil, no land, no homeland, no house, no roof, no. It's difficult to imagine a story to begin, you know, a line now, because everything goes inside. It goes in a very dark place. It's interior. It's deep. So the research, the work we do, resembles more some kind of research or, you know, digging or than film. Or when we do it, it resembles a film, but we have really nothing, you know. We do not have. We have the light. We still have the light.
When everything is stripped away, when you have nothing, what you have left is cinema, and you have the light.
Yeah.
And light is one of the things that emerges very strongly on the screen.
But there's something else, Laura. I don't know if we are strong enough. I don't know if I have the conviction to go on like this forever. Not forever, but you need a certain conviction. I mean, all the great ones had a religious or political or just simple belief in humanity that I do not have, and I don't think Ventura has anymore, and no one around me has that. You know, we believe in our work, we like being together and build these interesting things, I hope. But I don't know.
But at the same time, I understand what you mean. We can come back to that, perhaps, to make a depressing end of our discussion. But I think now, it's definitely thinking about Horse Money, to my mind, you're actually experimenting with how you put the difficulty of recounting and recording history on film. And I might say that an easy history is one that falls into a simple chronological pattern, whereas a difficult history, a history that comes out of minorities, the repressed history that can't be told, has to be depicted in a different kind of way. And so I think, in some sense, I think of Horse Money as a theoretical picture. It's still doing oral history, but it's still also showing the difficulty of history. And you yourself studied history and care about history. Do you feel that you're experimenting with history in this movie?
Yeah. It was my yeah, it was again, it's this part of uncertainty, and they tell you that history, I mean, and even the studies of history or the past is very, you can rely on sources, you know, and you can rely on, you know, broken pots and stuff like that. You can't. So there's this broken pot inside Ventura. It's there, and it's there, and but it's very deep, you know. It's and I always say that he gives me some hints, and I follow some intuition. I follow something he says, a word, a place. He's very good in, you know. He just give me. He says on 25th of April, 3 o'clock, I was with a ruffle shirt in that park. When he says that, you know, that day, that revolution day, I know exactly where I was, and that begins something that you cannot stop, because then that's what we did. We mapped our parallel lines during 1 year of revolution, of really, and that makes the program of this film. But how can I say? It's more what I don't know. It's more the this thing that is between us, that that I cannot approach, or it's like the letter again. The letter that I don't know the text. There's a part of the text that is completely gone. It's gone, and it can be the text between two people. You know, there's a text between two people, a story, a possibility that is very, very tragic in this case. It's not dramatic, because we cannot work with drama, I think. Ventura, me, Vanda, it's not drama, it's tragic. It's really tragic. And tragic in the sense that he lost very, very important things in his life. And there's a coincidence in this loss and what happened to our society at the same time.
As you say somewhere, people who are condemned to lose, they've lost their country, their integrity, their peace, their happiness, and their traditions. And you talk about how Fontinias is torn down, and even that community they had was dispersed. But then it can be extended more generally. But I thought perhaps we should now just say a word about Vitalina, because to my mind she's a very important part of the film, in that she brings back the actual islands and Cape Verde itself. So we can talk about the situation of the Cape Verdean community as marginalized, lost, oppressed, repressed inside Portuguese society. But then when we see Vitalina, we see the lot of the women who've been left behind, and the tragic loss of communication that's a necessary side aspect of immigration.
You said it very
But then
there's a little. I can do it.
I mean,
no,
it is
no,
a
it's
more romantic. It is a more romantic.
no.
side.
It's just, I found. She found me, or I found.
Let's tell the story about her.
No, I was trying to do this sequence with a song with a lot of people that I know, friends. I had this sequence. The song was supposed to be another song, a song to be made by this composer, Gil Scott-Heron, and then he died, and I had to use another song. And the idea was to have a lot of rooms and houses and interiors. So I was looking for these houses and friends and trying to compose sort of all the houses that I remembered from the old neighborhood. And I got to this house exterior, and I asked a friend who lived there if I could go in, and he said, no, no one lives there. It's the man who lived there he died. And when he said that, the door opened, it's like in a Jacques Tourneur film. He said, no, they died. And Vitalina came to the door. So I went and talked. I said, can I shoot here? And would you let me do some stuff here? And she said, yes. She was very shy and, of course, I understood she had 3 months in Portugal, or 3-4 months. She just came to, and then I understood her husband had died, so it's completely the story she tells in this film. And we became not friends, but we talked every day because I was shooting in this small place. And then I said, would you like, again, can I do just a portrait? And then I did 2 portraits, and then I said, can we do something? And I imagined that she could bring something from the islands, the past. I think she's an invention. I think it's Ventura that invents her. But this is me thinking, which is not very. I think he conjures like he wants somebody, like somebody in prison. You need partners like Imaginarian, so he does this girl and then he imagines somebody else and the soldier. So
I feel that I don't agree. I think she's come from the islands and she brings. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I suppose you could say that she could represent Ventura's memory of Zulina, his wife.
Zulmira. Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted you to remember that moment in Colossal Youth with the poem about the loss of communication between the islands and the migrants.
I don't know if I can't. I can. But I was just going to say something about Vitalina that I like a lot. I'm very, very proud of what she did with her voice, because she's not like this, and this is a difficult job. Because she was a little bit shy, because it took 3 months since we met to shooting all of this. So 3 months in which she revealed, my husband died, I'm here, she cried. I mean, it was very sentimental for her, for me. There was another friend, our crew is 3-4, so it's very close, we're close. Now seeing this and what she does and the way she does it, I think the way she whispers, and it's has something to do with this idea of the immigrant that has no papers. Like she has no papers still. We're helping her to be a citizen in Lisbon, but she's more or less hiding still. And she was completely hiding. That's why she was hidden in the house, and she was just peeking, seeing who are these guys. And so this thing that looks like just a ghostly figure from the island, somebody that comes haunting Ventura. It's that, but it's also the immigrant that doesn't have papers, that is hidden inside this, that travels in hospitals and places. And I'm really proud of the way she did it, because I think it's a very beautiful, delicate portrait of that situation. Without forcing it, you feel it. She's in hiding. So that's, yeah. And she has a lot to do with the letter. Yeah, the letter that was in the other film, or the poem, or the memory, which was we had this poem letter by part of a poem from a French poet, Desnos, part a letter from a Cape Verdean worker, and we had this in almost, I would say, in our pockets. Our crew, the Colossal Youth crew, all of us had this thing, because it's a long text, and Ventura was supposed to memorize it. So we are four, the crew, and we can do, everything. I can do sound. The sound guy can help me with the light, etc. So we can also take a little bit of time and sit with Ventura and help him memorize. So we all knew the poem or the letter, and Ventura knew it also. I don't know how it became our, in films they have the call sheet or something. It was our call sheet. We got there and we read the poem. It was like saying good morning, good night, etc. 1 line, 2 lines. I'd like to give you 100,000 cigarettes. And somebody would answer with something else. And so Ventura got so used to this and we all knew it. And it became our way of living. Yeah, I don't know. It's this kind of thing. It became, it was we just didn't see it, but it was the screenplay of the film. It was like, we have to memorize, we have to do this, not to forget, or to forget it completely. I don't know which one, but...
And it seems to me that Vitalina, and the poem ends, I think, with, please have a good bottle of wine and think of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that Vitalina comes out of that loss and sadness.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a good time to see if, from all the things we've talked about, will you wait for a mic? There's one right here. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, it was absolutely incredible. I was thinking of what you said about not being sure whether you have the strength, or whether you and Ventura and your team have the strength or conviction, or I don't know exactly what words you said, to do another. But for me, your film and all your films are creating the space that you say you're being robbed of, and not just you, but all of us. I feel your filmmaking is a way of creating a space in which these things can exist and continue to exist. And if you talk about relationships and conversations and this letter, being the messenger that delivers that letter and continues to deliver it on the screen, to me, perhaps represents one of the only forms of resistance at the moment that can exist. And so I really do hope you continue to make it, but I also wanted to ask you whether you think of your film as that, as creating, you physically illuminate space, you create a space, even while it's being destroyed, even while communities are disappearing, you continue to create space, whether it's real, whether it's, a topographical metaphor. Do you think of your film as that?
I think I don't. Normally I say I have so much stuff to do that I don't think about those things. We just start. We have some tools and we have to work and we do it, but we have so many things to, you know, perform and think, and always this obsession of the production. It's a way of not losing myself and perhaps my friends who work with me. It's really a way of not getting into some unnecessary stuff that I really think that film doesn't need. It really doesn't need. It needs craft and ideas, and it really doesn't need too much imagination, for instance. I don't think so. But it's me, huh? I'm not saying that. Imagination is something you can, it happens for me when we are doing it. Of course, we know already a lot from our life together, our conversations, our common side. We have some common opinion on things, general things. You could say politics or stuff like that. And then we have some limitations that now are. They are not imposed. When I'm saying we're working with leftovers, we really are. But I really do not want more money, for instance. It's not like I'm afraid. I had money in the past. I'm doing the. I had it already. It does not serve me. It did not help me. Perhaps it helps other people being more. I don't know. But it doesn't help my work. So I know I don't need it. I need what I need, what we need. We are also defining these limitations or these perhaps dangerous walls. Perhaps sometimes I think they are a bit dangerous. They can be. We feel it sometimes. But I think it's the only way that we cannot really. It's the best way for us not to lose ourselves in dreams or stuff. For me, this film, even for you, perhaps it has a dreamy or side. For me, it doesn't. It really, it's very concrete. It's the most, for me, the one that is really documentary for me, because I really think that apart, I would not say my country or Europe or the UK, but a small part of my country is going insane. It's the good part of the country. It's not the bad part. Those are the bastards. They always have been insane. I'm talking about these people that are going, they are losing their memories. And that's, for me, panicking completely, because it's my scenario, it's my script, I work with that. So that's the last thing I have. The last thing I have is this text. And I feel it's beginning to be broken, It's I have to feel it, and I do not have the conviction or the force to fill the gaps. I can't. It's too much. But I know they are losing their minds, their memories. They are going fast. It's of course going with unemployment, with all the suffering, and. So this way, the money, our limitations, I think, realistic limitations are our way of not losing ourselves in some kind of artistic dream that I don't need, that I don't think serves us. So I don't know how to tell you. I really think that cinema can lose itself when it crosses a kind of, it loses. I mean, it's something else. It's not the cinema that I'm interested in. But and I'm not calling it realistic or. It has something to do with reality. That I know. But that's the reality of making the film, you know, making every day the film. And we have now a form of operating, of producing that is, I think, a bit different from the conventional way. And it's not new. A lot of people in film have done this before and better, and there's lots of examples, and since the old days until now. But problem is to show those examples. They are not shown enough. I know some, you know others, perhaps, I don't know, small DVDs or...
There was a question at the back. Someone had their hand up. Was there anyone? Or shall we? Okay, we don't have very long, so if there's anything you needed to ask, please do. Okay.
Is there anyone? Oh yes, yeah.
I wanted to know what's your relation with violence. I mean, I think the films can be, in a very slow and dense way, very violent. And I kind of think of the violence of colonialism, and I mean, just regarding what you just said, in a way, not as a violence that's like mechanical or like exerted in a sort of kinetic way, but a very slow sort of epistemic violence. And I don't know, I mean, if kind of in a very effective way, this slowness kind of creeping back to the continent in a way, in like unforeseen ways, and yeah, I mean, I kind of think that your films sort of map that kind of affective decay in a way, in a very strong way. I mean, I sympathize a lot with how you how you sort of despair instead of, you know, like praising humanity or something like that. I don't know if it's a question. Maybe it's
It's a difficult film, probably. I don't know, to watch. It was very difficult to make. Violent, I mean, to make. Especially that elevator thing was very, very tough for us. Well, difficult in cinematographically, but like any good film should be difficult, and we wanted to do that, and we were prepared, but at the same time, what was happening to Ventura and what we were forcing him to do, and what we wanted or didn't want to share, we could see it was difficult. It was violent, and there's always this kind of... Yeah, it was the first time, I shouldn't say this, but it was the first time I understood something that a great guy, I admire Jacques Rivette a lot. I don't know if you know. Yes, also what he wrote. And there is always remember this strange thing that Rivette wrote. He said, cinema is about rape and fascination. It's a very, very tough thing to say. And I understood a little bit what it means. Because fascination and rape, I thought it was separated, but no, it's the same. You just join the two words together, and you have this, perhaps what you're talking about, this violence of here, decay, loss, falling, or just aging. And
Yes, I think that's a really important point, because the rhythm of the film captures the rhythm of the bodies and the difficulty of moving once you get to a certain age. And it's one of the few films that I know that actually measures those two things together, the aging body, the ailing body, and the movement of the cinema itself. And I feel that the film has at its very centre the bodies and the buildings. And both of them carry the traces of the past and the traces of time, rather like, which they preserve, rather like cinema itself preserves the traces of its light and its images that come in front of the... Sorry, I'm not supposed to be saying anything. I couldn't resist that. Yeah. Sorry, any other questions?
Yes, there's one.
Can I just mention that there are small details in the film. Ventura mentions two construction companies that people of my generation still remember, J. Pimenta and Gaudêncio. And you lose it in translation, but it touched me. And also the telephone company in Curvo.
oh yeah, it's more precise for us. You're Portuguese,
Yeah,
English.
I'm Portuguese. I'm 71, so I don't remember.
Yes, it's our thing. We know more, but yeah, well.
Because when I saw it last year at the NFT, in that special program about Guimarães, I thought I heard J. Pimenta. And I thought, no, I must have been dreaming. But today,
You're not dreaming. You're never dreaming.
In the Madeu,
Especially in the cinema, you're never dreaming.
Yes,
Dream at home. No, it's very much, but all these details, yeah, of course, is for us. But I've been a bit annoyed with this film because there's this dating and places and the revolution, and sometimes people say, "Oh, I have to know some stuff to understand this film." So it's not true. It's not true, but.
And another point was when they refer to Spindler, they call him the sequel. Only if you know the Spindler, you know.
Yeah. Small details that it's just for us.
I saw the film, I saw.
I did it for you.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Can I just finish it off?
Yes, or please ask.
Have we got more time?
We have a few minutes, yes.
Pedro, you just said a moment ago that it's annoying if people want to know the background details, but at the same time, for the elevator scene, for the lift scene, it's, I think, important to know something about the place of the army in the revolution and what you were trying to dramatize with the figure of the soldier.
I told you this revolution, well, very quickly. I was 13, almost. There was this revolution. It was, I don't know, I don't think anyone in this, except the Portuguese, have lived I think it was a real revolution in its etymological sense. I mean, it's kind of the energy of changing in a very, very brief moment, in a few hours you had that feeling of everything was changing. The present, the violence of present, it was a film, it's the present unfolding, always, no past, just present, So I was in that euphoria. Then I understood Ventura was not Ventura and a lot of his brothers and sisters. But I was in that thing. 1 year later, I still was in that mood. All of us were. It went. The nightmare was beginning. These soldiers, the people, I mean, the agents, the soldiers, the officers that imagined and designed the revolution were very young guys. They were captains. They were mostly captains, and they were very young. They were 22 to 30 at the most. And they were set to end up wars in Africa. That's what they wanted to do, mainly, because they were going to the war. A lot of young Portuguese boys were dying a lot every month. I remember. And so, war in Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea, stop that, change the regime, of course. So, for a guy 13, learning politics, getting into cinema, that's what I was doing, film and poetry and music and etc. Everything at the same time. I mean, you cannot help but one day do this. I mean, which is put the symbol, the soldier, the captain, the young captain is not very young, but well, together with its failure, the failure of it. It's just, again, if we had one, there would be no film, probably not this one, and not Ventura. And then it got really, well, talking with Ventura and a lot of people in the neighborhood, and I realized that it was much more complex, and these soldiers, brave young illiterate soldiers, Portuguese, that were going to die in Angola, suddenly were not going to Angola, and they became the Revolutionary Army, and they drove jeeps at 90 miles an hour at night in Lisbon, I remember, with red flags. And I mean, you just, you know, so any contemporary filmmaker would do this film with the Buzzcocks or the Clash on the soundtrack. You can see, actually they did it, I just remember. It's already done. I won't say which film it is, but so, and what they did was they went they passed by the slums, the Cape Verdean slums, and they played some games. That's what they did. Some revolution games, let's say. So there was some contradictions in this process that led to his failure. And some problems and some things were not clearly confronted. That's what I'm always saying when Ventura told me this kind of stories, you know, about being really afraid and angry with these young soldiers, you know. It's just a feeling. It's not an explanation or something. It's just my reaction. The first time I heard Ventura say this was to go to this, library where they keep the newspapers. Went back to my work and I went to the newspapers, 25th of April, 1st of May, 74. I was there. It was close to my house. There was 1 million people where I played, you know, where I played soccer. There were 1 million guys there, 1st of May. you look at the pictures in the papers and there is not one single black face. And since I was born in Lisbon, I remember black people. I mean, it's a black city too. I don't know if you've ever been in Lisbon. It's a very very mixed city, like London a little bit. And in the pictures, there's not one face, you know. It's a mass of white, ecstatic faces and fists. So he was right, he's telling the truth. They were all hidden. I mean, 400,000 guys hiding in slums and parks and almost caves. That's something you have to confront or analyze or think. And so the revolution was a failure because of that too, probably. Because we were not gentle. We were not gentle. Or they were not gentle enough. I don't know. It's
or
just.
they didn't put the two different
Or they didn't put the two
sides
sides together, of course,
together.
yeah, that's a better way. Of course, you're right. Of course, it's.
Can I just
You
read,
can.
to finish off, I just wanted to, because I think it's very relevant to what Pedro is saying now, the very, very closing words of your interview with Scope, where you say, you're talking about the money, and you say the film cost 100,000 euros. We have no money in Portugal, and film is the least of our problems, I think. It's in the film, and it's the best way we could talk about today. It's not really a film about the past or the future, there's only the present. It's very present. It's very in the present, this film. The film plays itself in an everlasting present. And film is always in the present. There are no films in the past, in the future, and today it's now and it's over. Ventura is always saying I'm 19, but of course he's not 19 years old. So I think with that you bring the whole problem back to the points that you were making earlier, which is the question of disappointment and how you bring together the disappointment of old age and the broken memories with the disappointment of the legacy of the revolution itself, which takes you back precisely to the condition of Portugal today.
Mm-hmm.
No. You needn't say anything unless you want to.
No, I just don't want any of us to feel
Too depressed.
too depressed or sad or. But it's not it's you know what I've been seeing. It's what I told you. I've been. Melly, you said 20 years. Of course, I'm not saying I saw them happier, or it's not that. But I'm seeing them going mad, going insane, going broken, and more broken, and it's contagious for somebody who loves them like I do. So I'm getting inside. This kind of thing, work is very, as you know, very. What's the word? You become the other. Necessarily, you have to become a little bit the other. It's not. You have to. You need to. You want to. It's the only way to survive. That's a Nick Ray thing.
But I think we could end on a better note if we take up your point and say that out of all this you have put these emotions and the politics into the film and into cinema and made an extraordinary cinema out of it, as well as a very thoughtful reflection on the situation of Ventura and his comrades. So thank you very much, Pedro.